name is Tom Reiss, and I'd like to tell you how you can deliver smooth user experiences with SAP solutions. You know, building an application with a good user experience is great if you can do it. If you really understand what your users need and you're able to give them a good user experience, well done. It's not easy. But these days you need to go the extra mile for a smooth user experience. For example, is your user experience consistent with the other applications that a user is using? And also, is it actually proactively informing the user on the entry points that the user has, for example? So a smooth user experience starts with the user's entry point. So here you see mobile examples or also in the desktop. So what do I mean with that? Basically, for example, does your application notify the user of important things? Does it, if your application has to-dos that the user needs to complete, do you push them to these start pages? If you have business situations that the user needs to react to, are you also providing these as to-dos and using the situation handling framework? And in particular, are you providing insights using these insight cards, for example, so that users can see immediately from your application what needs attention in these starting points? So basically, are you helping to make sure that the user never misses anything important wherever they are? And that's what we need with a smooth user experience, consistency and integration. And before I show you how to do this, let's show a brief demo of what I'm actually talking about. So here I'm in SAP Start. You might have seen this already from some of our keynotes. This is the desktop, the web-based entry point for our cloud solutions, for the Intelligent Suite. And what you see here is these to-dos. So here, these come from different systems, work items, for example, situations that need to be dealt with, and you can even approve and deny immediately here a requisition, or for example here 2 days time off from Jonathan Blake. So this is one way of proactively informing users of what they need. Also, and even more powerful, are these insights here, these cards that you can provide. And here we see an example from SuccessFactors, so my goals as a user. So if I click here, I am taken directly into the SuccessFactors system, and I can look at my goals. If I go back here, I also have some cards from S/4HANA Cloud Public Edition, purchase contracts, and I can select, let's take the third one here that's red, and go here directly into the S/4HANA Public Cloud system to have a look at the contract. And what you also see, of course, is going into different applications, you want to have as a user a consistent experience, so that the applications all look and feel and act in a similar way. And so here you see two examples of that in the web. But similarly, we also have mobile. And let me show you here on my iPhone, the SAP Mobile Start. And you see here, same design idea. You have these to-dos, for example, the procurement requests, a requisition, or these 2 days vacation that we saw being requested. Here you have the goals from SuccessFactors, so you can, of course, I could navigate to the details. And here you see also here the purchase contract information, and I can click on and see all of them here. And of course, I could also dive into the details. So again, this integrating your applications into these entry points and also providing a consistent user experience is important for a smooth user experience overall. So how do you go about actually developing and providing this kind of a smooth user experience? Well, before you start developing, make sure you understand what your users need, and also make sure, of course, that you're designing what you need. And we provide here for this, of course, the technology and design guidelines that you need via the Business Technology Platform. And of course, if you've been listening to the keynotes, you'd have heard this. It supports application development and provides the tools and technology for the users to consume what you're developing. So this is what you've just been looking at in the demo. So basically, SAP Start and Mobile Start, supported by Build Work Zone, also includes what you saw in SAP Start. So that's the consumption side. And now we're going to have a look at the development side, and in particular looking at the pro-code development, which we now, of course, have with SAP Build Code. And I'm going to be focusing now the rest of the talk on the application frameworks for UI, so the web technologies and also the mobile technologies to help you build a smooth user experience. So like I said, if you want to build a smooth user experience, make sure you understand what your user needs. And for that, and of course, once you understand it, then you need to design your application before you go off and build it. And for that, we provide design guidelines, the SAP Fiori design guidelines for web and for mobile, iOS and for Android. And the guidelines cover an extensive set of components, patterns, and floor plans. They also include design for AI, which I'll be showing you in a moment. And for all that we have in the guidelines, we also provide the technology for you to develop it very easily. And that's also something we'll be having a look at in a moment. So let's have a look at the design guidelines briefly. So here I am, and these are publicly available. You could, if you scan the QR code, you can have a look yourself. The design guidelines we have for web here, and you see we can go into, let's say we go into the Get Started, and we see here, brief introduction, of course. And here on the top left, you see we have best practices for designing SAP Fiori applications with the introduction, the basics, and so on. And in particular, important consistency, of course, 3 steps towards a consistent SAP Fiori design. So download the latest stencils, choose your floor plans and layouts. And of course, here are a lot of links for that. Craft the details, and you can discover these. For example, if we go here on the left to explore SAP Fiori, you see all the various aspects. You can, of course, look at the individual floor plans, layouts, or also the UI elements, and SAP UI5 supports them. And let's take an example here. You see a card with various examples. Of course, you could here on the left go through all the other examples if you want. And I mentioned AI. We also have, indeed, the support for designing intelligent systems. And here in the overview, you get the introduction. You can see the various intelligence patterns that we support here. And if you want to look at those in more detail, you can do that along here. So that was a very brief look at the design guidelines that we provide. Let's now have a look at what's coming soon. In fact, at the moment, we're hoping by the end of the year that we will extend our design guidelines to include guidelines on Gen AI. So the intelligence here, and what you're seeing here now as an example, this little video that's running is a preview of what we're planning in SuccessFactors for HR for creating a job description. So here you have an original description on the left, and the idea here is it's a bit of a preview what Gen AI could then take that input and create a much more detailed job description. And you see one of the design patterns that we would have is to highlight the new text so the user is always in control, in full control, and also has the option to accept it or to decline it. So basically the user sees what the Gen AI is producing and is also able to accept it or not accept it. So the user always in control. So those are the design guidelines. Once you've actually designed, you know what your users want, you know what the design is going to look like. Now it's time to build it, and we provide out of the box a whole load of technology for that. And our technology strategy, of course, we provide UI frameworks for this, built up in a layered approach. And if we look at the web, first of all, we have for the design language, so the visual design, we have the theming base content and the common CSS for the main colors and the shapes and so on. And then for the individual components that we have in the design system, we have the visual design, of course, and also the interaction behavior provided out of the box by UI5 Web Components and SAP UI5 controls. And our recommended approach, if you look at SAP Build Code, the recommended approach for building enterprise applications that we have is to leverage UI5 and Fiori elements. And going forward, you can see Web Components is a very significant part here. Going forward, whenever we build new UI5 controls, we will actually first of all build them as Web Components and then provide them via UI5 and then via Fiori elements. But also they are provided, for example, if you do need to or want to use Angular or React, then we provide this programming model layer also for consumption there. But why do we have SAP UI5 and Fiori Elements as our recommended approach? That's because they go beyond just a mere programming model layer. We provide patterns and floor plans for pro code developers with UI5, and even beyond that with Fiori Elements, out-of-the-box floor plans for developing UIs without even having to write a single line of JavaScript code yourself. And I'll show you these in a moment, but first let's have a look at mobile. So for mobile also we provide powerful SDKs for Android and for iOS with 60-70 components already out of the box. And if you want to do more a pattern-based approach, you can use the mobile design kit to code once and deploy twice. So to create an Android and an iOS native app. Obviously you have more flexibility if you use the SDKs natively. So it's your decision, it's your choice. So let's have a look at Web Components, at UI5 and Fiori Elements in a little bit more detail. So Web Components, basically you can have the UI5 capabilities in any HTML programming model. So that's the great thing about them. They're kind of portable. It's not limited to, say, SAP UI5. You can use them with React, Angular in any browser, basically. And if you look at good old native HTML, here we have a list with a button and an input text. No logic behind it, it's just visualized, and the same amount of code, but here now with Web Components, actually creates interactive components that run on the browser, in any browser, and even have all the logic of entering data, selection, and so on. So very powerful approach. Web Components is an international standard, and that's why we're using that as our foundation going forward and providing them in UI5. Now UI5 has a whole load of additional benefits. It's a powerful HTML5 JavaScript framework for cross-platform enterprise-grade applications. And what do I mean with enterprise-grade? Well, of course, it provides a consistent user experience because it follows the SAP Fiori design system kind of out of the box. So using that already, you're following the design system for the controls. It provides responsive applications, so responsiveness, so whether it runs on a desktop or a tablet or a mobile phone. We have hundreds of enterprise UI elements that you can choose from to build the UIs. It supports accessibility, internationalization, and that even includes right-to-left languages and so on, security. It's all ready to run. You don't have to do anything for that. And what's particularly powerful is if you build applications using UI5, then key users can actually adapt the UI, shift the fields around, hide fields and so on without having to do any coding. So you get that out of the box as well. It's also very easy for you as a developer to actually do this because we provide you tools to build, to test and deploy. And finally, what's also very important, you can get new innovations without having to actually touch your code at all because UI5 is backward compatible. So if we have new versions of UI5, your code will continue to run. You don't have to start re-engineering. So again, very, very powerful framework. Now let's come and look at Fiori Elements. I mean, if we have this powerful framework, what can we even do on top? Well, in fact, if you look at the business, especially cloud ERP business, you have often typical patterns. For example, users want to get an overview of the work they need to do. So you have this overview page with cards. Then often enough, you have a list of objects that you need to work on that you need to maybe filter. And then you want to actually work on a single object, either to look at it or to maybe to edit or create it. So you have then an object page. So we have a list report page, an object page, and an overview page is the typical elements that are very, very common. And the Fiori Elements technology supports these out of the box and gives you the search functionality that you see here, the filtering, the sorting, these actions, export to Excel, for example, also draft management for the object page without you having to write a single line of code. Obviously, you need the right OData service with the annotations to connect up to these patterns, but again, the UI you can get completely out of the box, so very, very powerful. Now, it sounds like you might have Fiori Elements on the one hand and UI5 on the other, but the great thing is recently we've introduced the flexible programming model, which blends the two, so you can really mix and match as you like. Also, we've now released OData v4 as the go-to approach, and using this, we can either start with the standard floor plans of Fiori Elements. We provide extension points, so you can then add your own custom code, or you could even add standard building blocks to these standard floor plans to adapt it to your needs. or you could start with a custom layout and then add standard building blocks so you've got your own different layout, but you can use the standard building blocks and benefit from the efficiencies of Fiori elements for the building blocks, like a table or like a form. And what I'd also like to mention is that UI5 supports TypeScript, which is also very good for quality. So let's just have a very brief look what I mean with the flexible programming model. So I can go here to the Flexible Programming Model Explorer, and if you Google that name, you'll find it immediately. And what we see here is the introduction. If we have a look here, these are the various extension points that are offered. And we could look, for example, here at a customer subsection. So here you see on the right already the coding. This is actually running here, so I could easily just select a subsection, for example. And here then I could, in this extension point, add my own code or also add a building block. Let's have a look at the building blocks that are available. So here you see a list of building blocks. Let's take, for example, the table as an example. And here we have a table in a display mode, so you get this table. All you have to do is add this macro here, this line of code, and already you've got the table in your application. Or another example is a filter bar here. Similarly, so if you wanted to add a filter bar to your freestyle application, then you just need to add this macro here, and away you go. So very powerful approach using the flexible programming model. So that was the web. But of course, these days, people are increasingly mobile. You know, hybrid workforce is definitely the future. Just imagine or think about what you can already do with your mobile phone. It's really amazing, you know, booking travel and so on. And so, of course, we need to make sure that we support both the on-site work, but also mobile. And for maximum effectiveness, you really want to be using native mobile applications and not just mobile web applications. And for that, we, of course, also have the design guidelines for Android and iOS. We also have the Fiori Mentor mobile app for you to discover iOS and Android, which got an IF Design Award earlier this year. We've got the UI kits for Android and iOS and also the SDKs. And again, let's very briefly have a look. Let me see now if I can actually switch to the iPad for this demo. And if that doesn't work, I've got a video as a backup. So let's see, hopefully that will work now. That will switch over. Sometimes it takes a little. If it doesn't switch over quick, there we go, excellent. So here I am in the Fiori Mentor application. You can see obviously it's a bit of the latest release, design updates and so on, and here you see some best practices. And let's just choose one, for example, around the task. And you see here you have a compact and a regular view, so you can see what it looks like on a tablet or on a mobile phone. And if I do show components, you can see that this is using 3 different components here, the object cell, the contact cell, and so on. Here at the bottom, I can choose UI components to see all the components that are available to me. You see also at the top, I can select also the new and updated components. Let's have a look at the analytical data table card. What's nice here is you can in fact also here switch on and off various parts of the card, and then you see immediately the visualization, so you can discover that pretty easily. Here you see some examples, so mobile and tablet, and you can in fact also export the code. And finally at the bottom on the right you have the backend components, so you see also information here about the backend components, for example for authentication and so on. So there, as you see, we have the mobile, native mobile also supported, and whether you build web applications or whether you build native mobile applications, in both cases you can provide the information via mobile start to widgets on the lock screen, on the home screen, on the watch, standby mode and so on. So make sure your applications are integrated and can push this information there. And of course beyond widgets, also make sure you're supporting cards to give you insights like we saw in the demo, so from SAP Start or Mobile Start. If you're providing cards in S/4HANA Cloud, they can become available on SAP Start, and the cards that are shown on SAP Start can also be shown on Mobile Start. For SAP S/4HANA Cloud, you can build them using Fiori Elements, overview page cards, or you can also build them natively on Build Work Zone. So to wrap up, key takeaways. For a smooth user experience, Good usability is of course important, but make sure you also have consistency with other applications and integration. We provide state-of-the-art design and development guidelines, tools, and technology for web and mobile, and make sure that your users are informed everywhere, wherever they are. So mobile and web entry points with notifications, to-dos, widgets, and insight cards. So with that, thank you. As usual, here the information on how you can learn more, and let me open up now then for questions.
Live Q&A.
Okay, so I see one question here at the moment for me. Is it possible to embed a UI5 app into the card like an iframe in a sense, not just a tile that navigates to the app? Well, we do have one type of card that is kind of like a container where you're pretty free to do what you want inside. I wouldn't say you're completely embedding a UI5 app into it, but you do have a lot of flexibility about what you're doing there. So let's have a look at another question. Is SAP Start the replacement for the Fiori Launchpad? Now that is a very good question. And the answer is a kind of yes and no. So basically the Fiori Launchpad is the design for accessing SAP systems using tiles and so on. And if you like, that design, if you go to the technology-wise, the SAP Fiori Launchpad is provided, for example, for S/4HANA, or also for integrated business planning running on ABAP. And we're following that follows a similar design principle to what we see in SAP Start. So we have the to-dos, we have insight cards now in the new My Home page that we have in the Launchpad. But SAP Start is the entry point for all our cloud solutions in running on BTP, so it's the central entry point. So in that sense, you could say it's a replacement for the Launchpad as the central entry point to access all our solutions. Technology-wise, it's running in the cloud. We still have the ABAP-based Fiori Launchpad running in S/4HANA, so on-premise and also in the cloud editions. And they are actually seamlessly integrated because each product has its own start page. So in that sense, they complement each other, I would say. Okay, so we have a few more questions here. So think of Fiori Elements as standard while UI5 provides more UI flexibility. Yeah, so one thing that's important is Fiori Elements uses UI5. It's actually part of the UI5 package. So I would simply say Fiori Elements and UI5, it's not either or. Yeah, so if you can use the UI5 framework directly, have more flexibility, or you can use a pattern, or you can use a flexible program model for both. So I'd wish to have a front-end integration of other vendors' solutions, adapting one UI design. Usually, sure, is that what SAP Start eventually can do for us? Well, it can certainly help you integrate. SAP Start, yeah, so SAP Start is aimed for SAP solutions only. If you want to integrate other solutions, you can go up one step to the SAP Work Zone Standard Edition. So thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoy the session and enjoy the rest of TechEd.